You're in consulting now. Everything that you have to deal with when you're dealing with a situation like this, where it's just a robbery suspect and then there's another car involved and then you never know, and now a baby. And now we're seeing the woman in the back clearly. Yeah, with a baby.
Well, it does look like it would be difficult for the vehicle to move, and I think it's going to be a safe conclusion, which is the most important factor, and we can sort of decipher now next steps. Wow. You know, there's always a story behind that that's unfortunate. Of course, we want to look out for the victims, but there's always troubling details when that involves human beings when you're involved in crime and things of this nature. So I'm glad to see this great restraint by law enforcement authorities.
So we have this driver here, this suspect backing up and clearly giving up. It was almost heartbreaking to see, looks like perhaps a family or people who certainly care about each other caught up in this. Kevin Takumi, I'm trying to decipher now, who was the original driver in the original robbery case? Was it this person here?
It was,
who was then in the driver's seat?
It was reportedly as a male. So they could have switched. They switched initially at the beginning when the pursuit started, and she may have jumped into the back seat from the initial point. That was the radio traffic. So he may have been driving the whole time, and she may have been in the back seat with the baby the whole time. But it was the initial suspect, this person that they're taking into custody right now, who ended up being the driver. Initially got into the passenger seat when they took off, but somewhere along the line, obviously it looked like they switched. They could have switched at the end here too.
Yeah. What city did we end up in here? The Culver City area, is that right?
It's kind of the edge of Culver City, Baldwin Hills kind of area. Well,
that suspect is now officially in custody. Obviously, guns are still drawn because they need to check the vehicle. They won't give this a code 4, which is law enforcement speak for the scene is now clear. They won't do that until they actually check the vehicle down below. They'll open the trunk.
And those are all still sheriff's deputies. So they've been involved in this pursuit for at least 45 minutes from the beginning when it started in the Marina Del Rey area, and they stuck with it. And you know, they didn't let it go. They didn't give it up to any other agency. Thankfully, this ended.
It seems they have reason to believe that the vehicle is still a danger. Is there somebody else inside, perhaps?
Well, they're starting to make their approach right now. So they're going to move up and clear the cars just because all those windows were tinted, so darkly tinted. So they're starting to make their approach right now, and they're going to get in there, clear the vehicle. Yeah, so checking that back seat, pop the trunk.
Jim, bring Jim in. Jim,
from their stance, it looks like they're clearing it well.
Jim, this was your agency that you spent decades at, the LA County Sheriff's Department. As we're watching the scene play out with what looks like to be a family or people who I said definitely seem to care very much about each other. You're watching that there, Jim, with the man embracing the woman and the child. It is heartbreaking to see a child caught up in this and to see guns drawn, but you can now understand why there was a delay in this coming to a conclusion. Jim, talk about that as you saw your law enforcement officers at work there.
Yes, and you bring up a great point, because it does make you realize that crime impacts families, both the people that were allegedly victimized in this case, but then oftentimes people involved as well. And so I think the hope that you would see would be that we have rehabilitative services if the crime was not too serious, depending on the nature. But, you know, the bottom line is lives were endangered when there was this dangerous pursuit. It makes sense now why the Sheriff's Department did not conduct a pit maneuver, knowing maybe they had information that there was a family, a child inside. And so, but yet they held on to the pursuit. So that makes a lot of sense.
Let me just ask you quickly before we wrap this up. The baby, you see this female deputy there, you know, caring for the baby. What happens to the child now?
Well, I think they're going to have to diagnose what's going on. Is the child safe to return to that same family? Was the other occupant of the vehicle a participant of this crime? It's not safe to have a child involved in criminal activity in any way, shape, or form, obviously. So did this person knowingly do this that's in the custody of the child? So we don't have a lot of information, but I'm certain that that's what detectives will look at. And we always want to, in the law enforcement community, strengthen families and make sure that everyone can grow from a situation, not minimizing also the harm to any potential victims of this as well.
We don't know if the woman was a victim herself or being forced to comply with that pursuit. But it is a heartbreaking moment right there, and God bless that deputy for the loving care there as we see this pursuit come to a close. Marla, I'm going to step down and let you finish your 6 p.m. show.
Okay, well, let's thank Jim Helmold. Thank you, Jim, so much for joining our coverage. Of course, Kevin Takumi, we always appreciate you jumping on. And this is coming to a conclusion with hopefully no injuries to speak of, and hopefully that baby gets the loving care, to Christine's point, that she deserves and gets reunited with her family as soon as possible, or somebody who will take good care of her.